Welcome to 15 Minutes of Mental Toughness with your host, Dr. Rob Bell. Dr. Rob interviews expert coaches, executives, and athletes about mental toughness and their hinge moments. The hinge. It connects who we are with who we become, and it only takes one. And now for your host, Dr. Rob.
All right, so welcome. This is 15 Minutes of Mental Toughness. Our guest today is Todd Hollowell. Todd is a pro angler for all the lay terms out there. It's a pro fisherman. Todd fishes on the FLW Pro Tour. He's been on there for about 7 years. A second place finish most recently in the FLW Costa Championship. Is two-time BFL All-American qualifier, has 11 top 10s in FLW events, has won multiple local, regional, national trail events, including Midwest Sportsman National Championship, Angler's Dream National Championships. That one sounds pretty cool, man. Sponsored by Red Gold Tomatoes, tons of other sponsors. If you need me to go through, I'll put those links on there, Todd. But thanks so much for joining us, man.
Man, it's an honor to be here. I've been working with you for several years, and it's been helpful for me in my own career. But honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tell us, what is something that most people have no idea about? What it is that you do being a pro angler? What is it that you can share with us about your experience, about what it's like?
This sport has really, really evolved over the last, I would say, 15 to 20 years. And, the question I get a lot is, man, you must have the dream job. You just go out there, you probably have a cooler full of Cokes, and you sit there with a bobber and wait for the fish to bite, right? And I'm like, no, man, it's way beyond that now. We have $90,000 boats, high-end equipment to find fish with electronics, and there's a real push in this younger millennial generation that's really mastering the sport. There's college fishing programs. Colleges actually offer scholarships now for bass fishing. It's huge at the high school level. There's thousands and thousands of kids across the country that are competing. So this sport has really evolved. It's become highly competitive. And, the thing that I kind of compare this to people is we're a lot like golfers in that we're trying to hit a target. We're trying to find a fish every day. The difference is our target is invisible. You can't see it. You're constantly trying to find this fish, or you can't see it. And that target moves from day to day. So imagine going to play golf. You didn't know where the hole was, and it moved on you every day. So it's a huge challenge. I love it. And the other part is, we drive a lot of miles. I typically put 40,000 miles on my truck. We don't have a pit crew. I don't have a coach. We don't get to call timeouts. It's typically a 13, 14-hour day for me when I'm on the road, only to turn around and drive home from Florida or drive home from Texas or something like that. So it's grueling. It's very much mental, and you have to be tough to survive in this game.
Nice. I love that, man. So walk us through a little bit. You're not listening to George Strait on the radio, casting off or anything like that. It's early morning. Walk us through what that whole early morning is and the rush to get to your spot and how you've scouted that out.
Yeah, so we typically have 3 practice days. So we have 3 days to actually spend daylight to dark on the water. We can look at a lot of the lake, and try to cover as much of the lake as we want. We're really trying to find productive areas. And so when tournament day rolls around, you're typically there about 2 hours before daylight. It's early. We get there 5 o'clock, 4:35 in the morning, something like that. Our field is about 185 guys, so it takes a while to get boats in the water. There's a lot of time to think.
How do they determine who goes off first?
It's random. It's a draw, and we all swap positions throughout the year. So one day if you go out the first boat on day 1, you're the last boat on day 2. So they kind of flop those every day and mix it up. But there's a lot of time to think, and you're also out in the elements. So we just came back from a tournament in Georgia, and it was 28 degrees in the morning and spitting rain and snow. And so you're sitting there for an hour in the dark, out in the elements. So there's a lot of time to think. There's a lot of time to try to the voices like to try to keep it creep in your head, but you're really trying to figure out where you want to start your day. Sometimes we'll make long runs. Our boats will run 70 plus miles an hour. So there's an element of racing in this. There's definitely some hazards, and some risk involved. You may hit objects and sometimes you can't see. But anyways, it's really like a blast off. They let us go off one boat at a time for safety reasons, but you're really going as fast as you can to what you feel like is a productive area. And then you have to start trying to find your targets. You're making casts, trying to find fish, and you're getting feedback. And a lot of times it's negative feedback because you're not catching anything. So you really have to overcome a lot of adversity, a lot of moments where you're not getting feedback or you're getting negative feedback. You'll hear no probably 3,000 or 4,000 times a day, and you only need to hear yes 5 times. We're trying to catch the 5 biggest fish that we can. We have to bring them back to a weigh-in, say 3-4 o'clock, somewhere in that vicinity. So it's typically an 8 to 10 hour day for us. And at that point you kind of see how you stack up with the other guys.
So when it comes to mental toughness and what you do, so I can assume that you cast off, you're trying to go find your spot. What happens if there are other boats that are in the spot that you've chosen? What happens then?
Yeah, it's kind of like driving around the parking lot at Walmart, and you see that one spot, that's right up there by the front door, and you got a bead on it, and you're making your loop around the aisle, and you get there, and somebody pulls in right in front of you. You know that feeling, right?
Cadillac, right?
Right, like that was the best spot here, and I didn't get there. Somebody beat me to it. So then you have to have the mental toughness to regroup and say, okay, I'm going to let this guy have this spot. I'm not going to fight him for it, and I'm not going to physically remove him from it. So I've got to go find the next best place. So that and sometimes there may be someone there, and you may go to the next best place and there be someone there. So it's kind of like that parking lot mentality. You've just got to overcome. A lot of times as an angler, you think, hey, I'm going to start my tournament here. This is the best area that I found, and you not even get to fish there. So there's a lot of adversity, a lot of things that are unpredictable outside of your control that you really have to overcome to keep moving forward and to make things happen in fishing.
What are the things that are 100% in your control out there? Because you're dealing with animals who, although sometimes are predictable, are very unpredictable. They're going to do different things, right? So you have to obviously adjust and make adjustments. Like, what are the things that are in your control?
It's the ultimate challenge, and you're exactly right, because so many things are out of your control. You're not in control of the weather and the elements. You're not in control of these fish. They have fins and they use them. They swim, they move. And you're not in control of maybe whether a competitor gets to an area before you do. So it's the ultimate challenge to learn how to control what you can control. And ultimately, you have to control your boat. You have to try to take it to productive areas, and you have to stay mentally focused enough to make good casts. We call them presentations, but you got to make a cast to an object, whether it's a boat dock or a log or a rock pile or something like that. But you have to stay so focused on your lure and making the right presentation, all while all this stuff's going on that is outside of your control. So it's really just about winning the battle in your head and staying focused in what you need to do, really on a minute-to-minute basis, because there's so many things that are outside of your control.
So what is the battle then that will go through professional anglers' heads?
Aside from money, like the financial thing is the one that I think bothers a lot of anglers. When you don't have enough money, you start wondering if you're going to make it, if you can make it home, if you can make it to the next event. So that's a real struggle in and of itself. But just on a day-to-day basis, it's really being able to deal with failure, right? So again, we're trying to catch the 5 biggest fish in the lake, and a lot of times we'll make 3,000 to 5,000 casts to get those bites. So it's being able to process hours and hours of not catching a fish, only to make the correct adjustment to get in the right area and make the right presentation and catch 2 or 3 real fast. So it's a lot of times in fishing, it's about overcoming those long, monotonous days where you're not getting a lot of positive feedback. It's like I tell people, can you imagine if you went to work and worked for 8 hours and didn't get anything done? Or only in 5 minutes of your day was it productive? That would be frustrating. There's a lot of frustration because you're wanting to catch fish, but you may go 2, 3, 4 hours without catching one. So the challenge is really mental, staying focused, making the right adjustments, and handling what you can with the things that you can control.
When it comes to the mental game and confidence, athletes are always talking about confidence. There's not a lot of thoughts. They're just doing what they do. How does that come into play? If you can describe that experience for us, how does confidence come into play with what you do?
It does, and in our sport, you will see anglers who they get on a roll, and a lot of it's confidence. A lot of it is just believing that you're making the right decision. So again, we're in a sport where our target is invisible. So there's a huge trust element in your own head, like being able to trust that I know I'm doing the right thing. I know I'm in the right area and these fish are here, right?
And in terms of like the lure you're using
Yeah, and I know I'm using the right lure. I know I'm making the right presentations. I know I'm in the right area. So learning to trust yourself and being confident. And a lot of times that comes from experience. It's a lot of times you'll see younger anglers have good events and then have poor events and have good events and have poor events. The guys that have been around for 25, 30 years and have really been successful in this game typically do well each event. And a lot of that is confidence. They know they're doing the right thing. They know they're in the right areas. They know they're using the right lures. That's confidence in fishing. And that's just trusting yourself and knowing what you need to be doing.
So if things aren't going well, how do you get that confidence back, outside of just results?
Tough question, right? Because it comes and goes. It comes and goes for me. This is something that I'm dealing with right now. I'm at a little, we've had a little slump to start our season, and I finished last year on a high note. We almost won a major event at the end of the season, and then we've started this season kind of on a low point. So it's definitely something that I deal with and can relate to, and I think a lot of athletes do. You have this period where things are going well, and then something happens and you're struggling. But for me, that confidence is a feeling, and the only way to get it back is to feel it. So for me personally, if I've had a bad event or a couple of bad events or something, I want to go somewhere. I want to go fishing somewhere where I can catch a lot of fish, where I can really build my confidence and remember that I know what I'm doing. I know how to catch fish. I know how to use these lures. I know how to get in the right areas. So I've strategically moved close to Geist Reservoir right over here because it's my home lake, and that's where I go. That's where I go and rebuild my confidence in between events. So that's what I do.
That's great, man. One of the things I'm always interested in is these hinge moments, right? These moments, people, decisions that make all the difference in our lives. What's a hinge moment that you can share?
Yeah, great question. And I'm of the belief that there's more to come, right? I believe there's a hinge moment that may be coming this year or this week at my next event. And reading your book and just knowing you has helped me stay ready for that, because it can happen at any time. It only takes one event to really make a career in fishing, and it could be this next week. But looking back, for me, I think back to October of 2011. Okay. I was a young insurance agent, just kind of getting started, and I had been fishing tournaments for probably 8 or 10 years, and I was kind of aspiring to get to the higher levels in fishing. So I threw my name in a AAA level circuit that year just to kind of see where I was, and lo and behold, three out of 4 events in, I'm in like 10th place in the points, where the top 10 anglers then qualify for the high-level national FLW Tour. So we're going into the last event of the season. I had spent that summer trying to find some sponsorship opportunities just in case I made that tour qualification in October, and it just hadn't happened. Nothing was happening from a sponsorship standpoint, and I really hadn't qualified for the tour yet, but I knew it was a possibility. So October 2011, we're out in Table Rock Lake out in Branson, Missouri, and it's our last event of the season. And I remember I had a decent first day. Probably was in like 40th, 50th place, something like that. And I was really on the bubble of making the FLW Tour. And I walked away after day one, and my phone rang, and it was someone from Red Gold Tomatoes corporate office. and they wanted to talk to me, and they wanted to set up a meeting with me the next week. And I'm a big believer that when things are meant to be, those opportunities come to you, and so long as you're ready to capitalize on them, it can become a hinge moment. So for me, day 2, I go out and struggled through the day. Had some opportunities late in the day. I caught a few fish like in the last hour, Rob, and I think I finished in the top 20 there. I finished in the top 10 in the points. I qualified for the tour and came home the next week and ended up closing my initial sponsorship deal with Red Gold Tomatoes. That was a hinge moment for me. I remember that day like it was yesterday. And again, for me, I was looking for it. I was looking for that sponsor. I was looking to qualify for the tour. And when those opportunities came, that was it. That was the hinge moment for me that really got this whole thing started and has shaped my life, quite frankly, for the last 7 or 8 years. It changed the direction of my life for sure.
Wow, that's such a good one, man. Again, I just kind of pause a little bit because I'm always just thinking about those moments. Like we have no idea when they're coming. It's interesting how we become what we think about, and how focusing on having the outcome that you wanted, but at the same time being able to get that sponsor, that's what manifested. For sure.
I mean, and I remember that season I started out, I really just put my name in those tournaments just to see how I stacked up to the competition, and really wasn't on a mission to qualify for the tour, but got myself in position, and then I started looking for that hinge moment, and it actually showed up. So very powerful for me, and looking back. And I think all athletes, all business people, in your life, you'll just have there's a handful of moments that come that really change the course of your direction in life, and really shape what happens for the next portion of your life. And that was definitely the moment for me.
Yeah. So Todd, let me ask you another question. With life and then the career that you're doing, since this happened a few years ago, how does your whole approach change in terms of doing what you do? Because you just went in, you were just, I'm not saying there weren't goals, but the goal wasn't really far outcome based and to be there. How does that change over time by getting experience and getting better, at the same time knowing just to focus on doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I think your vision is huge, right? And I think sometimes in life we just get busy. We get busy doing things, and we get so caught up in living the day-to-day life. We have with technology now, there's never a dull moment. I mean, you can hop on and surf and read and social media, whatever. But for me, just spending time to think and about my vision and about what I want to try to do with my life, and what my gifts are and how I can use them in this world. Your vision is huge, and trying to understand what direction you're moving in. That vision is being able to look out 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now and understand this is really the direction that I want to move in. So for me, we spend a lot of intentional time thinking and just being intentional about the direction we're moving in. That really dictates what we do on a day-to-day basis. And for me, it's been, I work at an insurance agency here in Fishers, and that has been part of our vision. And so we've worked really hard for the last 7, 8 years to build that. And same thing with my fishing career. I still have a vision of being one of the best professional bass anglers in the country. So that requires a commitment and some work, and you have to work in a direction there too. So it's the vision, though. It's that big picture vision. What are you doing with your life? What are your gifts? What direction do you need to move in? That really dictates what you do daily.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. In terms of your vision, can you elaborate on what you're doing with your education piece and helping those that want to get into the field of fishing?
Yeah. So just late 2017, we decided. There's, again, I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but fishing at the younger level, so high school and college, has really exploded in the United States. In fact, I've been told it's the fastest growing sport in America. So what we see is that there's an education gap. Like all these kids want to fish at the tour level, or they think they want to fish for a living, but there's really no one teaching them all of the different facets that go into that. And I also believe that from what I've learned in fishing, it's the skills that you learn to be successful in fishing are the same skills you learn to be successful in sales, or in a job, in a career, in building a business, whatever it is, being an entrepreneur. The same skills transfer. Communication, being organized, being on time, all those things. So we wanted to develop something that high-level young anglers, where they could come and really learn that skill set, polish that skill set, understand how important those things are in building sponsorships, in progressing as they get a little older in the sport. So we started a little thing called Bass Life Education. And so right now we're working with about a dozen high school students and about a half a dozen college anglers. And we had 2 of our high school anglers were named All-State by Bassmaster Magazine just recently, and were nominated for All-American. So we got some real high-level anglers. We want to be like a prep school. I feel like I've been around long enough, and I've seen enough of this sport where I feel like I can teach some of these younger anglers who want that information, and how to prepare, how to be mentally tough. I mean, that's a big part of our education piece too, is mental toughness. There's a lot of places where young anglers can go to learn how to fish, but how you prepare for events, building routines, overcoming failure, self-talk, how you handle downtime, all that stuff really comes into place. There's really nobody teaching it. So that's one of the things that we wanted to bring to the young anglers in fishing through Bass Life Education. Wow, Bass Life Education. I'll put a link there in the podcast, man. It sounds fantastic. Appreciate that.
What is it about mental toughness that, from your experience, that people need to know when it comes to mental toughness? What's the piece that you want to share with them?
For me, here's what I think. Everybody faces challenges in life, right? Everybody does. And the farther you go in a career, the higher you work into a company, in a corporate setting, whatever it is, those challenges just become bigger. Everyone deals with challenges. Everyone has obstacles and setbacks, whether it's health, whether it's financial, whether it's, it can be traffic, right? We all deal with challenges and obstacles, setbacks, and really that, to me, mental toughness is your ability to overcome those challenges and to help yourself get through them so that you can keep moving forward. A lot of it's about problem solving, but a lot of it's just, that mindset and what you're saying to yourself. Oh my gosh, here we go, traffic again, I'm stuck. Well, there's traffic, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't control it, and you have to get through it. So how can we use that time wisely over the next 20 or 30 minutes while you're getting through this traffic jam? So mental toughness is really, for me, just an attitude about doing whatever it takes to overcome challenges and setbacks, solving problems, and keep moving forward.
That's great, man. Yep. Todd, where can people follow you, learn more about you, and then just follow your career?
You bet. Appreciate that. Website, there's an overview there at toddhollowell.com. I'm pretty active on Instagram. I believe it's just Todd Hollowell, and then I'm Todd Hollowell Fishing on Facebook. I'm on Twitter as well. Just punch my name in, HOLLOWELL. We try to keep people informed on what's going on in the fishing industry, but we share a lot of this message out on social media. I'm just like Coach Bell, and I think people need more encouragement. I think the world needs more positivity. I think you need people in your life that will give you a message that says, hey, it's not going to be easy. Things are going to be tough, but you can get through this. You can keep going. So we share that message a lot on social. I would love for you to follow along.
Absolutely. I'll put those links in the podcast, man. Hey, Todd, thanks so much for your time, man, and really appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you having me, man.
Okay, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the Mental Toughness Podcast. If you like what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast. You can also check us out on Twitter at Dr. Rob Bell or visit our website at drrobbell.com.